And I'm live. Hello, everyone. Welcome. What I should say is I'm Don. It's late. I'm up. Hi. How are you? Nice to see you. Well, you see me, but I see you in my mind's eye. We're connected here. Anyways, you'll forgive me. I'm doing the allergy thing as per usual. Those of you who watch a lot of the show know occasionally it's going to be a nasally mess, but we get through these things together. Got a cough drop just in case. Got some water. Anyways, welcome. And despite that, exciting intro I just threw at you, tonight we are going to talk about Star Wars: Empire Strikes Back. And as I said, I'm Don. It's late. I'm up high. I'm watching this movie because last night we watched Star Wars: A New Hope. It is May, so May the Fourth be with you and all those who celebrate. And it is also the weekend first day after the long weekend where Grogu and Mandalorian came out. So lots of Star Wars related topics going on in the world right now. So what a better time to watch what is arguably my favorite movie of all time. Big Empire Strikes Back nerd, loved it ever since I was a kid. It's one of the few things in my life that has actually lived up to the hype. So I'm going to go ahead and get this started here in a second. I see my friend Russell Collier is here. Welcome, Russell. Glad to see you. May the force be with you, my friend. I know Russell isn't that big of a Star Wars fan, so the fact that he's hanging out for this shows he's here for me. It's the support. I appreciate that guy. Yo, buddy. By the way, still working on my memoirs and my internship. As I recall, you were up to 2023 last time we talked. Hey, Russell. Hey, how are you guys? Anyways, I'm going to be watching this on the streaming conglomerate that is Disney Plus. We'll be watching this. It's 2 hours and 9 minutes. It's from 1980. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to press play on this. So let me make sure it's muted. And we'll get started right away. As I mentioned last night, we watched A New Hope. I tried to maintain the idea that I was only going to talk about A New Hope the entire time. And tonight, I'm going to try to only talk about Empire Strikes Back. Like I said, this is one of my favorite movies of all time, so it shouldn't be too hard to ramble about it. Thoughts on it, so many thoughts. If you have thoughts about this movie, blah, 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 please feel free to share them and put them in the comments or the chat if you're here live. I thank those of you who are here live, like my friend Anthony, and he says, yo, um, the one of the things I don't like about streaming movies, in particular in this age and with these giant corporate conglomerates, is there's always commercials. I'm already paying for this service, so why am I watching commercials as well? But corporation's going to corporate. Um, so yeah, we have 45 seconds for this to start. And as I mentioned, I'm a big Star Wars. Why are you in the way? There we go. Hey, right, right, dork. I am. This movie was one of the few that when it came out, I had all this anticipation for it, and there was no way it could be as good as I had hoped it would be, and it was even better. Um, so many movies I watch nowadays, I'm like, yeah, they're doing the Empire Strikes Back thing, or um, as far as a sequel goes, arguably the best sequel ever made. Like I say, I think this might be the greatest movie ever made. It's fantastic. The cinematography, the writing, all of it. It was directed by Irwin Kershner, who, despite popular belief, did not direct Body Heat. There's a rumor that's been going around that that's true, but that's incorrect. Um, the person who did direct Body Heat was Lawrence Kasdan, who is a screenwriter and sometimes director. He did a lot of different punch ups, especially for Steven Spielberg and George Lucas films. So that's where the mistake on last night's stream got thrown into the mix, and our friend Stacy Acres of Movies caught that for me. Anyways, corrections and errors and omissions aside, here they are, the big bombastic Star Wars. The original, or the what I call Star Wars, the first one, and we now know as A New Hope. It's been rebranded. That one starts off with the classic scene of the ship going by, and we're like, "Wow, that's very impressive and rumbly." And in a theater, it's amazing. And then all of a sudden, the big monster ship comes by above it. So this time, let's see how they start off. We're on the crawl right now. Um, it's doing the whole thing where they basically explain this is like it doesn't say it here, but it's 3 years after the first one. Both supposedly the rebels have blown up the Death Star and they've just been running around the universe hiding from Darth Vader. All this is total, Flash Gordon serial stuff that George Lucas was inspired by. The inspirations are plentiful. We talked about a lot of them last night. Didn't even get around to C3PO looking like Metropolis or that whole, what's it called? Forbidden. Missing Kingdom, Hidden Kingdom, whatever the heck that movie I never seen is. All that stuff that Lucas stole from. Like I say, he's a lot like Quentin Tarantino. He knows the best stuff to steal from. So the evil Lord Vader is obsessed with finding young Skywalker and has dispatched thousands of remote probes into the far reaches of space. So it kind of sets you up that that Luke and them are on the run, and this is like the perfect beginning to me. Them being on uh, Hoth. Jesus, I almost called it Tatooine. Last night was Tatooine. So basically, in the first one, they're on this desert planet. So we need to start off with that same vibe. So, like, what's the opposite of desert, but somehow the same thing? The middle of the snow, it's like all these dunes and everything. So they capture the same feeling. Even there's the probe being dispatched. It's a a mirror, an echo, whatever Lucas likes to call it, of when the probe or the escape hatch shot out in the first one in C-3PO and R2D2. It's the same type of thing. And instead of slamming into the sand, this one slams into the snow. This thing is scary as hell. I remember as a kid watching this, like the probe droid, and it looks like a flying squid or something. And it's I think the Matrix kind of does a rip off of this. But this whole beginning, what an awesome grabber. We're in the snow. It looks fantastic. It's total Dr. Zhivago. And then we got Luke riding this crazy ass it looks like a kangaroo, the tauntaun. Um, and some of the scenes, like the claymation, is much better here than the claymation in A New Hope. But then again, there's no telling how much has been polished over the many versions over the many years. And there's one of my favorite hero shots or shots in general in movie history. We often talk about hero shots when we watch movies on the channel. Hero shots, a term I stole from Robert Rodriguez. It's a way to set up a character by like kind of obscuring them a little bit, or are you moving the camera in a way that really like makes them look powerful. So we see Luke on the Tauntaun and he rides up and he's got the scarf over his face. So when he reveals it and you see his face, even though we know it's Luke, the damn thing said they were looking for Luke Skywalker. He's all over the poster and everything. But that reveal of his face, it's something like a dun dun dun, a heroic moment the second we see him. It's like, oh, our old friend is back. And then there's the damn Wampa. Um, a cool idea to me. It's like, well, what do we do to get this started? It's like, I don't know, abominable snowman. Of course. What else would you do? And it also solves an awesome problem. Well, it's an awesome answer to a bad problem. In between Star Wars: A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back, Mark Hamill was in a bad car wreck. I believe it was a Corvette. I don't know. Anyways, he was in a sports car and he cracked it up and he busted up his face and they had to do like all sorts of reconstructive surgery on his face and everything. So this opening scene, we don't really get to see his face much because it's all wrapped up in scarves and all that stuff. So then he gets smacked around by the Wampa, and he has to fight his way free from that. And then when we see him in the back to tank, and he's clean, and his face is different from the old movie. Now there's an explanation. They worked in that whole thing to um explain why our hero has a new nose. There's also a whole like deleted scene that you see floating around sometimes, and people love, where the Wampas are like attacking the rebels' base as the same time that the Empire is attacking or invading the rebels' base. So like there's this kind of like three-way fight thing going on, but the Wampas are attacking the stormtroopers and stuff. They cut it for time. I read the screenplay for this a long time ago. As I mentioned, I'm a monster nerd for this. Um, and in the screenplay, it's a spooky monster scene, but it's totally unnecessary to getting the story moving. And right, as I mentioned, the cinematography is perfect. No matter how many times I watch this, it's like this is how all movies should look. Super shadowy, lots of contrast. I'm a big fan. I've mentioned before of the look of David Fincher and a lot of the cinematographer Dean Cundey is a lot of his movies look the way I think movies should look. And just, yeah, this stuff here, the way everybody's lit, so like it's cold because it's Hoth, but at the same time they look warm and it's romantic. And this stuff between Han and Leia and their flirtation and all this, the love triangle that develops through this movie. But even there, the blue lighting from underneath, it's all in shadows, so it's sort of obscured. And You can't really see their intentions. It's supposed to be thematically that we don't know where they stand with each other regarding love and, the war and whatnot. But this movie looks perfect. I wish all movies looked like this. David Fincher's style is totally a ripoff of this. And I grew up in an area that got lots of snow. So this stuff was all awesome to me because in the winter I could take all the Star Wars toys and go out and play in the snow. Like I couldn't wait for a snowy day to take the big AT-AT out. As I mentioned, my whole life as a kid, we called them AT-ATs. And then eventually I learned I'm supposed to be saying the whole initials. Never mind. I'm closer to the AT-AT than you guys are. In this running gag throughout these movies where they can't get the Falcon to ever work right. It's so funny, like just that it's a hunk of junk and he loves it so much. What do you mean nobody knows? So yeah, C3PO. I love the idea that Han can just put his hand over C3PO's mouth and shut him up, like as if the speaker would stop working or something. Big dramatic start. We're at the 7:44 mark. Um, Part of me, as I've seen this, several times as a kid, and I saw it in the theater when it was brand new. I had the Star Wars fan magazines. Like I said last night, I subscribed to Bantha Tracks, so I had all like the inside nerd stuff going into it. Lots of good mustaches on the rebels. You know what I mean? Like they all are putting Benson Boone to shame. That's a dated reference, but yeah, what are you gonna do? The Tauntauns are awesome to me. Like this one's clearly a puppet, but there's like many different ones. Like I said, they do the claymation, but every now and then you'll see a Tauntaun's face kind of up close, and it just looks like a silly like stuffed puppet. But it's sort of amazing. Now we're in the Wampa's lair, and you see all the bones and everything. Just this pan through shot, and there's Luke hanging upside down, just like ready to be eaten. We've got our hero in peril of being devoured within like the first 10 minutes. I like where this is going. Uh, in a galaxy far, far away, we are here for the Night Owl. I thank you, Hobbs Horror, friend of the channel and friend of the horror community in general. Welcome, Pumpkin King. Thank you, my friend. Um, where is Empire your favorite of the original trilogy, Hobbs? I know you got good taste. Um, Russell says guys always love their toys, right? That goes for Mark Hamill and his Corvette, and me and my Wampa out in the snow. And this whole scene right away, it's fantastic where he has to touch into the Force, and we see that he's more advanced. The time since the first one, where he's sort of this dope, and he does can't his Force control is very limited. He's just learning, and now we're starting to see it's like, oh, you got tricks. This Wampa, it's one of the few added scenes in the special edition crap that Lucas added in the late '90s or mid '90s, whatever it was, and this stuff with the Wampa I like, especially like him sitting there eating with the blood all over his face and all that. But I remember I had a Wampa toy where you could cut his arm off, and like there they had that. Um, I've had some version of what we're seeing here. I had a Micro Machines one. I have a Polly Pockets one. It's a Wampa head, and you open it up, and there's like a little Luke hanging in there. Um, I had the regular play set where you could dangle Luke from inside, and it came with the big Wampa action figure. The Wampa was a fun action figure to have because at any point you could just mess up any scenario by just sending in this giant abominable snowman. Like, crap, we got a loose Yeti. And then, yeah, this whole kind of almost all is lost moment early on, it messes with traditional screenplay structure where they're like, look, man, it's freezing out there. Everybody's going to die. Your Tauntaun will freeze to death. We got to lock up the gates and, turn the heat on or whatever. And just the people who are loyal to Luke and Han are still out there, mainly C3PO and R2D2. There's Luke stumbling through the hazy snow. Like, we know he's going to be okay because he's the star of the series, but there's just a feeling of like, oh no, buddy, going to die here. They're going to bump him off early. Those tauntaun shots look kind of eh. They look like they might have been originally um, stop motion, but then later on they went through and maybe polished it up a little bit with the computer. But there's classic puppet head, and now we're back to CGI. The effects are like so blatant. That's the only problem with this movie. I have very few complaints about this one. Hey, there's Cliff from Cheers. Uh, um, Cliffy. Sometimes when you go see this at late night screenings, they scream Cliffy when he's on the screen. Shout out to all the people out there who love Cheers. You have good taste. I like Chewie's hair. He's going with more of a feathered look in this one, kind of parted down the middle. The first one was more like a teased out kind of 80s rock heavy metal band sort of thing. This is more, fluffy. He's got a better conditioner since the first movie. And that's a perfect button on the scene when the big doors close and we know that they're trapped out there while the good guys have to wait out the night. And he screams and roars into the screen. Perfect. This one's going to be hard not to get caught watching because it's like I say, it's my favorite looking movie. The plot is fantastic. The evolution. I think it's probably the best sequel ever, but there are so many good sequels. It's hard. Aliens, Godfather 2. Put in the comments or the chat. What's your favorite sequel? A lot of people say Terminator 2. So now here we kind of see I believe, the first instance of Obi-Wan Ghost. Luke's passed out in the snow. He thinks he's going to die. And then we see kind of the dissolved ghost of Obi-Wan Kenobi. We hear him at the end of the first one where he's telling him to use the Force and all that. But to actually visually see the ghost, it's pretty cool looking. It looks better than it did when I was a kid. This I saw in the theater, saw once again in the drive-in. I mentioned the drive-in last night. There used to be one, I don't know, probably 5 miles down the road from where I lived as a kid growing up. So I saw plenty of the movies from this era at the Kino Drive-In in Kenosha, Wisconsin. So here Han finds Luke, and this scene as a child blew me away. It's like, the big thing with the first one is it was made for adults and, the hippie crowd and the late night crowd and stuff. It's supposed to have the kind of Roger Corman, sci-fi goofball feel to it, but it's also supposed to be like a more respectable version. But the big thing was it got to appeal to kids and all those toys and all the marketing and everything. It was kids, 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 right? So this second one, they go away from that instead of steering into the like we got to sell toys and we got to make this acceptable for little children to watch. It's like here they're going to slice open this tauntaun and stuff Luke inside. Oh, and I thought they smelled bad on the outside. The little details of the puppet tauntaun's like hand, you can see he's missing a fingernail on one of his paws. Speaking of the toys, Han Solo in his parka. Out of all my Star Wars figures, that one lasted way till the end. Princess Leia in Cloud City outfit, the brown one that she has later on. That toy, the snow stormtrooper, and that Han Solo in the parka. For some reason, all the other ones got beat up by GI Joe or they lost a limb in the toy box or something. But the Empire Strikes Back figures must have been more durable than the others. Now here's the snow speeders. The snow speeders are like blew my mind too. It's like, okay, it's the same, once again, echoes. This is like Luke's sand speeder, except this is a snow speeder and it flies a little high, but it isn't like a spaceship. And as the kid, the versions, a lot of it had bad green screen and matting. So it just didn't look right, a lot of it. You could see the intentions, but you could also see the bad, overlays and the outlines around the green screen and everything, blue screen. Chroma key. Like even there, that's a little sketch, but a lot of this has been polished up and looks totally natural and perfect, but not too much overdone like they do nowadays. There's Echo Base Rogue 2. He found him. The land speeder toy was one of my favorites too because it had the little grappling gun dealy and all that. There's that damn robot droid. That I don't know. I ended up with like four of those somehow. I guess people must always give me extra ones for Christmas or something. It's like, oh, we got two of these. So yeah, this Empire Strikes Back, the droid that has Luke in the back to tank. I'm sure some aficionado knows his real name. There, they just do kind of like a quick half montage. They find them in the snow. They get back. They cut to dude getting in the back to tank, and now we see Luke's jacked up face from the car accident. Mainly around the eye and the lips and stuff. He must have just totally destroyed his face. Uh, Russell says his favorite sequel is Dr. Phibes Rises Again. I don't know if I ever saw. I mean, I know I saw the original Dr. Phibes, whatever Phibes, but I always got it confused with. Oh, forget it. Vincent Price. Yes, thank you. What's the one I'm thinking of with the dude with the piano? Don't matter. Anyway, so here we this is one of the famous like love triangle scenes that motivates all this, and they're all together. Luke's back from the dead, and Han's to like kind of saying, like insinuating that him and Leia got a thing going on, and she's pissed. Who you calling scruffy looking? And then she goes over, she's like, "Oh, I'll show you," and she gives him like this big passionate kiss to like be in your face, Han Solo. And then later on, when we find out what we find out in Return of the Jedi, everybody goes, "Ooh!" Like your mind flashes back to that kiss, like, awkward. Original Trilogy Talk. 21B and FX7 are the medical droids. Thank you, Original Trilogy Talk. It's like I summoned you. Um, yeah, I believe that's what 21B is that the guy's name? The one with the microphone stuffed in his face. Yes, and welcome, Original Trilogy Talk. Nice to have you here. It's good to have an expert in the crowd. Last night I was distracted by conversations and I falsely accused Erwin Kershner of directing Body Heat. Things get off the rails real quick here. As we mentioned, Erwin Kershner directed this. Irwin, whatever. I always think of him. He's like the funniest dude whenever they interview him. He's a character. Like find Erwin Kershner videos. Like um, he directed that sort of bootleg Bobo James Bond movie, Never Say Never Again or whatever, where basically Sean Connery said he was never going to do a James Bond movie, and then he realized he wanted that James Bond money, so they wrote this sort of fake James Bond movie for him. So there they blow up that droid, the probe droid. And like I said, that thing's scary looking. It's got like Matrix copies it later. It looks like a squid. The little things dangling from beneath it, almost like a jellyfish or something. Imperial probe droid. Hey, Russell. Yep, that's him. So yeah, that's what I thought. Like I said, I remember most of the characters, the names I knew them by as a kid are different now. Like, I mentioned last night, what's his name? Walrus Man is now like Ponda Baba or something like that. And I can't, but the same with the Tusken Raiders. Like to me, they're always going to be Sand People, and it's like, well, technically, Sand People are the Jawas, and everybody's like, shut up, it's the Tusken Raiders. So there we see like the giant Imperial ships, and their whole fleet kind of going around. And we see how huge Vader's ship is. Getting back to like I say, the start of the original trilogy, where we see that ship go by the Rebel ship, and then we see the giant Star Destroyer go behind it. Even the Imperial troops, the British cronies who are just sort of here to add great dialogue and make the exposition more interesting. They look better in this. More shadowy, more contrast. Like they just all has like a timeless feel. The first one falls guilty of looking a little bit too much like the 70s. It's a lot of earth tones because of Tatooine and whatever, but lots of browns, lots of things of the era. This one, some of the haircuts are 80s, but a lot of the clothes look very kind of generic sci-fi. Um, I feel like this one's more timeless. It looks like it's hard to pin down exactly when this is from. It's from a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. Duh. That's a bad matte or whatever. Like they chroma key. They got these soldiers, the rebel soldiers up front, and then there's like a matte painting in back or whatever of the Millennium Falcon, but there's the outline around them is real bad. There's a in Return of the Jedi. We'll talk about it tomorrow night. By the way, we'll be watching Return of the Jedi tomorrow night at 1 a.m. Eastern time. And in that one, there's a part where the Emperor, whenever they show him sitting down, there's this weird black leech looking shadow thing. And for all the corrections they did on these movies, that black thing stayed there for years and years. I don't know if the newest versions they've gotten rid of it yet, but it looks like somebody tried to do like a bad filter on a phone and correct, like, oh, get rid of that spot, and then it just left like a weird black. And this movie, the first one is more of a straight narrative. Like they bounce back and forth between, two stories, maybe three, usually two. This one starts bouncing around all over the place. This is more of your traditional like ensemble cast. Luke and uh, is off with Yoda and him and R2D2, and then later on with Han and Leia, and their whole adventure, and ended up on Cloud City, and we're following several stories as well as the whole stuff with the Empire, and Vader aboard his ship and the frustrations of trying to track them down, and all of that. So this one, the wipes are more important. There's the iconic scene where Darth Vader's in his weird black egg and it opens up. He's just sitting there all powerfully. That's such an amazing scene. You don't need any dialogue, just John Williams score. That weird. Uh, we don't acknowledge Pandavana, Walrus Man. It is. Thank you, original trilogy talk. Yeah, I mean, I understand they all got to have character names and stuff. Although some of the J.J. Abrams names, like aren't they named after like Beastie Boys songs and stuff? like some of the characters are. Oh Jesus, I can't even remember. Um, Something sabotage or whatever. Like they're all like a couple of times. It's like those are Beastie Boys references. Um, Russell wants to know how many Star Wars films are there? Well, there's what? There's nine of the trilogy, and then there's the two Ewok movies. I don't know if we count the holiday special as one. I think that's a TV, so no. Technically, the two Ewok movies were made for TV movies, so that's in between. Um, then there's Solo, and there was that weird cartoon one they did for the Star Wars ones where it's basically they just took 3 episodes of that old what is it, Clone Wars cartoon or whatever. It's about Stinky, the Jabba the Hutt's nephew or whatever the hell it is. That one, do we count that? That was a Star Wars movie. Um, uh, and then yeah, Solo, Rogue One, and Mandalorian Grogu. Sure. Original trilogy, really? Is there any more than that? I expect your answer to be no. There's only the original three. I love this. See, I'm going to say this 100 times. I should have just put a "I love this" counter up. um, they're preparing for war, and it totally looks like All Quiet on the Western Front. Like they're digging these trenches, and it looks a lot like in Wonder Woman when they have the whole no man's land thing. They're setting up for that, and we see the soldiers prepping their guns and getting their trenches, and like firing at the thing, all of it. They're trying to protect the rebels as they leave the planet and get past the blockade and all that. But the hype to it is what makes it. We could just start off with the shooting and everything, get to the action right away, but the fighter introductions are key. The first ship is away, hooray! Thanks, Don, for that. Yeah, I probably missed one or two, but Empire cinematography has tons of shadow in the lighting scheme. It's if the characters are only lit by existing lights in the scene. Awesome lighting. Yeah, I know. That's what I mean. I think all movies should look like this. Just right there, we see the land speeder taking off, and it's got so many shadows around the wings and stuff. It looks real. It looked like a real thing taking off. I mean, I know it was probably a practical ship, but it just had there's no part of like, oh, that's a fake ship on being lifted by a crane. And there's the first appearance of the AT-ATs. And like, there's also a hero shot. We hear them coming, we know they're coming, and then we see them through the little, like, hologram binocular dealies. So we get an obscured sort of video view of them before we actually get a look at them. And what are we in as far as story? We're at the 26 mark for the battle on Hoth. So there's another hour and 40 left. The second act starts once they're off Hoth, because, like I say, that's when they each start going their own ways. Han and Leia end up in the big, I don't know, what's that thing called? The asteroid slug, space slug, I think it's called, but I always thought it was a whale. Um, that thing, and then they end up on Cloud City. We'll just float away with the rest of the trash. This game right, or this shot right here with the land speeders and or the snow speeders attacking the AT-ATs. Like I said, I call them AT-ATs. The AT-ATs. They're there was many video games of this. Like there was I believe one of the better Atari 2600 ones was for this, and then there was, I believe, an arcade game, because it's such a like tailor made for a video game plot line or whatever, trying to wrap the wires around the legs of them to bring them down, and, trying to hit their vulnerable spots, and the whole thing where Luke, climbs up and all that. It's fantastic. It never gets old. Signing off. Have fun, y'all. Well, thank you for adding a little credibility to the stream. Original Trilogy Talk. It was nice to have you here. I dig that OTT, brother. Hello, Don. Do you think Keanu Reeves would play a great Darth Raven? And if I watched out Mall Shadow, Lord, do you think that the pink Twi'lek Devon will become Darth Tylan? You are way over my head. You are so Star Warsed out, and I love it. No, I have very few opinions on that. I think Keanu Reeves would play a great anything. Um, as far as any like other Star Wars projects I'd ever want to see, like I know, there's so many people who are excited about where Disney's taking those shows, and who knows what's going to happen with the movies in the future. But I would like to see Shadows of the Empire. Is that what it's called? The book, and then they made like a soundtrack for it, and I don't know, they probably made a game. Um, with that weird lizard guy and everything. Like, I'd like to see that as a movie. But otherwise, like most of the other stories from the novels, some of the spin-off stories from the books and everything, they're the entire expanded universe is so huge. It's beyond my ability to keep track of it. Especially with the comic books. There's a whole Star Wars comic book thing that I've never got into. The old school Marvel ones from back in the day, I have like a handful of them because I thought they were cool, but the new stuff, like I don't know, Dark Horse or whoever has them now. Yeah, I never got into it. Original trilogy says there are 12 live action theatrical films, 13 including the Clone Wars animated film. Okay. Let me see here. Have a good night, talk. Hey, I appreciate you, Russell, being here, and thank you also for being here. Original trilogy talk. It was nice to have you here. Like I say, tomorrow night we're watching Return of the Jedi. So feel free to drop by again. And also, I forgot to acknowledge Starfall. Thank you for dropping by. Is this the first time we've had you here? I believe you are clearly knowledgeable at Star Wars. So if we're going to tap out and let original trilogy talk take some time off, it's good to have another expert here. Um, Most of my expert is just being a lifetime fan of it. I mentioned last night up until the prequels, and then all the stuff. Well, even up through the prequels, really. Um, I'd seen pretty much every Star Wars everything ever. But then once Disney came and there just became so much Star Wars content, I don't know if I'll ever keep up with all of it. That's kind of was what my answer was to you, Starfall. Um, yeah, in general, that's like the Marvel universe. At one point, I had seen all of the comic book movies and shows, and then eventually there just became so many. It's like I don't think I'm ever going to get around to them all now. Here's the whole target the main generator thing. Rogue Two, Rogue Leader. I've heard that Abeloth might be coming to Ahsoka season 2, and Natalie Portman might be returning as Padme, and Abeloth will be take Padme's form to deceive Anakin. Interesting. Um, I know Natalie Portman. I think her biggest gripe with Star Wars was George Lucas's directing. Um, we had mentioned last night when he directed A New Hope, he didn't like it at all. He felt like it was too much pressure. He was too busy answering questions and not really getting his chance to, get the performances out of the actors he wanted. He famously told all the actors like faster, more intense. So no matter what line reading, they would be like, "Okay, do it again, do it again, but faster, more intense." There's my George Lucas. Thank you, thank you. So you can. There's a tip uh, link in the description. Feel free to PayPal me some money for that. So there's where Luke's snowspeeder gets squashed by the AT-AT, and I like I say, I love them because for a minute this becomes a kaiju movie. We already had big old Yeti come by, a friggin' abominable snowman. What is going on outside? It sounds like a tank is pulling up. So if I'm being attacked by the Empire, this is going to be one of the best live streams ever. But it's probably just somebody with a loud truck. So here the rebel base is being destroyed. They're all trying to get away, and we see everyone's pretty much out except for our main cast members. Star Wars suffers from the things a lot of The Walking Dead, Lost, a lot of shows that are big and tell a story. It's like we focus on just these main characters, and there's all these other characters just sort of floating around. What's your story, Cliff Clavin? That has to be AI or CGI polished up. I mean, those AT-ATs right there walking, they look so smooth and polished. As a kid, they looked way clunkier. So there's the part where Luke has a little grappling gun, and he um, pulls his way up and cuts his way inside. I remember, you would save up when you would buy Star Wars figures. What in the hell is going on? Hold on, let me look out the window. I hear someone like destroying a car or something. Bear with me. No, it's just apparently someone just slamming doors real loud and a cat on top of a car. Sorry for that wonderful life break. Um, yeah, those have to be kind of rejiggered with CGI there. They look a little funky. And there's the generators. The generators I've seen more times in video games than I've actually seen in this movie, and I've seen this movie a bunch. This movie, like Indiana Jones, I also had, oh, a commercial. How dare you? We mentioned last night when we were watching that this Disney presentation does have commercials in it. And whenever it pops up, it throws me off because there's no good time to interrupt Empire Strikes Back, right? Like there's no point where it's like, okay, we could just a little break. No, I want Empire all the time. Ebeloth is the mother of Mortis Gods from the Clone Wars series. Okay, okay. The Clone Wars series I've watched a bit of. Like I say, what was it? Yeah, Rebels I've seen a little bit of. I never watched any of what Young Jedi's or whatever. But as a kid growing up, I had watched all of them. I'd watched the Droids cartoon. I saw the Ewoks cartoon. Um, Mentioned earlier, I watched both of those bad Ewok movies on TV. But most of the new Disney stuff, I'm way behind on. The only thing I've watched is Mandalorian, and even then, I'm only on the end of season 2, beginning of season 3, something like that. I don't know, but haven't gotten around to Book of Boba Fett or Andor or Obi-Wan or Ahsoka, or there's so many of them. What's the one I can't even remember? The There was a new one that was out, and there was all this controversy about it, and they thought it was going to be a movie, and then it became a show, and that was part of the problem with Kathleen Kennedy's tenure of the Star Wars stuff. Is there's just so much like announced things and taken away, and things thrown in your lap out of nowhere, and changes along the way. It didn't feel like there was a plan in place. All right, so we're back to Star Wars. Or back to Empire Strikes Back. Had to watch a quick commercial for fabric softener, and now we're back to these guys getting trapped inside the rebel base. I'll get her out of the Falcon. Come on. So this is good, plot. It makes it seem like everybody's going to go their own way. Luke's going to go his way. Han's going to leave in the Falcon. She's going to go off with the rebels, and instead, he ends up pulling Princess Leia with, and then they get to develop their little love story and all that. Vader when he was still strong. I think that's part of the problems with the prequels is it takes Vader's strength in these movies away. Like right here, he just looks so badass invading the rebel snow fort and walking through the hallways like he owns the place. I mentioned last night he's based on Christopher Lee as Dracula. Yeah, that scene right there with him walking through the snowy halls and having the snow stormtroopers behind him and everything. It's just so much power. Even there, the Falcon looks better. Like we just were watching A New Hope last night, and it looks very like 70s. It almost looks like an episode of Kung Fu or something, or a Sergio Leone film is maybe what they were going for with their cinematography. But here, like all the lights of the Falcon are lit up like neon lights and everything. There, the Falcon's sitting on the runway getting ready to take off, and you can see all the outer lights on it. It looks like an airplane sitting on a runway. It just all of it, the shadows, the contrast, the hallways, it all looks so much better in this. Sorry, I got caught again watching the snow stormtroopers. I like their look. I like the kind of covered up face or whatever. The original stormtroopers helmets are a little goofy looking. So these ones, the same with the Imperial Guard, whatever, the Crimson Guard. No, that's Star Wars or GI Joe. What the hell is the Emperor's Guards? The Praetorian Guards. Is that what they're called? Um, That's the problem with between Star Wars, Game of Thrones, G.I. Joe, Transformers, He Man. Over the course of my life, I've filled my brain with so many characters that at this point, it's like, yeah, I don't remember my nieces or nephews' names. It's like, hey, you, Man at Arms, get me a drink, would you? You know me, I'm Ram Man. Oh, my bad. So here we see Luke and R2D2 dipping off, and this is where the second act starts. We're at the 36-minute mark and there's an hour and a half left. This is him going off on his own journey. The Dagobah system. And there's such intrigue. Like when you get to Dagobah, it's such a creepy, gross kind of place. It's like nowhere you'd want to be. Right away, there's a callback to the scene in the trash compactor in A New Hope, where we're in the water and there's a monster in the water, and so here, oh yeah, never tell me the odds. Harrison Ford gives the best serious, like I mean business voice out of anybody. Like I think that's his key. Like even Indiana Jones, he's sort of fun and playful, and then he gets into that like, damn it, here's what we're gonna do. And that's how Han Solo is too. He's sort of happy go lucky and silly, but when he yells at somebody, he means it. Carrie Fisher doing her finest, I'm concerned, but not really doing much else than just looking concerned acting. This is before she has the crazy coke nail she has in Return of the Jedi. This one, her hands are normal. I already looked, but in Return of the Jedi, there's a couple parts where she puts her hand on like Han Solo's shoulder, and you can see like the big pinky nail. It's like, oh, you were living that '80s life, weren't you, girl? Was there a film called Han Solo? I think it was just called Solo, a Star Wars story or something like that. We talked about that when we watched Weapons, also available on the channel on Night Owl Movie Talk on YouTube or on your favorite podcast provider. When we watched Weapons, the what's his name, Alden Reich, Aaron Reich, whatever his name is, the guy who plays young Han Solo, and he's very good as young Han Solo. Not as good as the guy that plays young Jim Carrey in Dumb and Dumberer, but um, uh, still pretty damn good. But he doesn't look like Han or Harrison Ford anymore in Weapons. Like you can barely even recognize him. Other than that, the high points of Solo, or there's a really cool train robbery scene. Woody Harrelson's in it. You can never go wrong with Woody. Um, my issues with Solo, the biggest thing is it suffers what I call prequelitis. It's like we have to see everything we already know, and I don't care. I made the Kessel Run and da da da. Okay, let's see it. No, heard about it. We don't need to see it. Oh, here's where they get the Falcon. Here's where Han and Chewie meet. Like, I don't need all that. Just tell me another story, but not all the dumb stuff that's unimportant. I don't need to know about Boba Fett's dad. So here we're in this asteroid field looks a little janky. I wish they would have maybe cleaned this up with their CGI stuff. Um, a lot of just a flying debris, but it looks well, yeah, I don't know. A lot of the matte lines and stuff just sort of look composite lines, all that just look crappy. And here's where he flies into the whole hole. Like I said, I think it's called space slug or whatever, but I always called it a whale when I was a kid. This sort of Moby Dick moment because it's a total surprise. Like we're in there and we know they're hiding out in this sort of cabin or a cavern, and it's like very steamy and hot and moist. Like Luke goes to Dagobah and they're kind of bumped up next to each other, so it seems natural. And then we figure out we're inside the belly of the beast. The Pinocchio moment. Minox chewing on the power cables. You don't know how many mechanics have looked at me so confused whenever I have car issues and I explain that's what I think is wrong. What seems to be the problem today? I think I got Minox chewing on the power cables. It's the problem with mechanics. They don't get Star Wars humor. Dagobah's kind of pretty from above. Lots of clouds. Once again, blue lighting, all the lighting perfect. Even the helmets and everything. This is all the same costumes basically as A New Hope, but the blue lighting to add color to that yellow visor, that wasn't in the first one. It's such a cold movie. They probably used a blue filter on a lot of it, like Mark Hamill's skin looks blue. The stuff up front with Hoth is obviously kind of cold. I'll be curious when we get on Dagobah if they switch to like a green filter or a warmer filter. Things you don't pay attention to when you're 9 years old and you watch this. But I have always been intrigued my entire life by that like protein bar, candy bar thing that Luke eats, and then Yoda asks him how you get so big eating food of this kind. It's like I want one of those. What is that? A Twix? Looks good. So Lucas crash landed in the swamps of Dagobah. Let me put my damn lozenge in. Pardon me as we take a lozenge moment. There, that's better. So Lucas crash landed. It's sunk in the swamp. I had this playset as well, the Yoda house playset. Yoda and his damn snake stew. Yeah, other than the hair, pretty much timeless. Like you can kind of tell he's got a little bit of an 80s haircut. But everything else, like that uniform and stuff, it looks like Aliens or, 2001 or any sort of timeless space movie. Yeah, this is like I say, Lucas is real big on what he calls echoes. It's basically just stuff that happens over and over again in different ways. So if you follow life's patterns, you can kind of guess where things are going because you've seen it over and over again. So yeah, this is sort of a callback or an echo to, like I say, when we were in the trash compactor in the Death Star in the first one. Yeah, and there's a weird like I called the trash compactor monster. It's like, yeah, it's like a little baby Loch Ness monster. And there they show the monster that's in the swamp. It's like, yeah, it looks like sort of a medium-sized Loch Ness monster. And then when we think we've lost R2, like this is look, we haven't seen a lot of the tricks that have going to happen in this. It gets replicated so many times over and over later on. But the first time you watch this, it's like, I don't know, they would kill off a robot character just to make their point. So maybe he is dead. And then when he gets spit out and shot across, and he makes that ridiculous robot screaming noise. Yeah, Mark Hamill, even here, he's all like just like they got him dewy and his hair's all like dirty and stuff because of the swamp and everything. It looks the color of it and everything. This is a perfect movie. All movies should just look like Empire Strikes Back. I stand by that. Same with Raiders of the Lost Ark. I had mentioned that when we did the watch along for that. Also available on the Night Owl Movie Talk YouTube channels and your favorite podcast providers. As you can see, I'm a person who speaks. Not well though. As I mentioned on there, those movies look perfect. I don't know. It was right at the peak of when they could film, like shoot stuff on film, and they knew the color correction just right and everything. And then through the 80s and into the 90s, once we start getting into the digital stuff in the 90s, is when we start to lose sort of this warm vinyl film feel. Like Carpenter, John Carpenter is a big advocate of shooting on film still. He thinks the digital look just looks too fake. So here we see Vader in his egg, and he's getting the bad news broken to him. We're about to have an Imperial troop or Imperial officer get promoted. Anytime anybody's got to get bad news for Vader, it's usually a career opportunity for somebody else. And once again, I will ramble about the cinematography. How perfect. They're in the Falcon. You can see all these lights lit up. I mentioned how the better they look in this. They look more like a, Las Vegas casino or something more than they looked all dingy in the first one. And the colorful lights are reflecting off of C3PO, so he's like a weird green with like some red dots along his shoulder and stuff. Just moody and atmospheric, even though it's a silly space Flash Gordon serial ripoff. So yeah, the ground is unstable and shaken, and Leia falls in his lap. And this is sort of awkward the first time you see it when you don't really know the story and you haven't seen this over and over. Because there is this feeling of, well, I kind of want her to get with Luke. He's the hero of the story. She's the pretty lady in the movie. They're supposed to end up together. That's how movies work. And, Han Solo in most movies like this, it's like, oh, he'll get killed eventually. And that's what Harrison Ford thought would happen. He's like, oh, I was just thought this character would get killed. He wanted to die in Return of the Jedi, I believe it was, because he's like, he's a character with no relatives or anything. So if he dies, no one's going to be sad. But they didn't give him his wish. And here's Luke setting up base camp. Like I say, the whole thing. This part, one of my favorites. So many favorite parts, but he has this little lantern thing that he plugs in, and it adds like this perfect gold lighting. And then, of course, what are the other lights he has? They just happen to be sort of a blue that complement that amber lighting perfect, right? And then him and his little lunch, he like opens it up. It looks like the same box that Molly Ringwald's sushi is in Breakfast Club. And I mentioned he's eating this word like protein bar. There it looks like a Zagnut. I'm going to say it's a Zagnut. Might be a Butterfinger. I don't know. I feel like being watched. Why put your weapon? I mean you no harm. Yoda, as you can tell by the shirt, big Yoda mark. Been one my entire life. The idea that the baddest man in the galaxy is a little tiny guy, and a little frog at that, and just sort of his crazy old man. There, the like pretty shot of him where he's got like the crooked lip. He looks like Bill Murray in Caddyshack. And this is Frank Oz, you know, uh, I believe it's Frank Oz, yeah. Um, bringing this to life. This Yoda looks so much better. When they did Last Jedi, they tried to do the practical effects Yoda, and that Yoda looked terrible to me. I don't know if I saw a bad morph of it in the theater or what, but it looked wrong. And this one looks right. There's when Yoda's digging into the Luke stuff and he's got his butt in the air, and he's got a little tiny Yoda butt. Sometimes when my toddler falls asleep in her playpen with her butt up in the air, it's like, oh, look at a little Yoda butt. Mm. No sense it makes talking like this. I know, I will help you not. It's so funny how they introduce him and he's like childlike and foolish, and then later on we realize, oh, he's playing the clown to try to mess with Luke and see what he's made out of. Once again, a prequel itis issue when he tells Luke, like, too old to begin the training. I even took it as a kid that, like, that's just an excuse. Like, he doesn't want to go down whatever path this is for whatever reason. So you're too old to start the training is, just an excuse. Like, yeah, you don't want to start ninja training at 30, but at the same time, it's clearly a lie. So then when the prequels come along and we see that they do start training these little, like, Padawan Jedis at like 3 and stuff. I don't know. I like it better. It seems like Yoda's lying. I can't get over how good Yoda looks in this too. Like, this is such an amazing movie. Yeah, it's a perfect movie. It's one of the few I've ever rated 10 out of 10. Um, this, Raiders. Actually, let's find out. Let's see. Let's find out what movies I have rated 10 stars or more. Your ratings. According to IMDb, I have rated. Oh, come on now, load. I ain't got time for this. Let me see. Sort by your rating. Come on. There, 10 out of 10 is Shawshank Redemption, The Dark Knight, Godfather, Fight Club, Pulp Fiction, The Matrix, True Romance, Silence of the Lambs, Saving Private Ryan, Goodfellas, Memento. Wow, I can't believe I gave Memento a 10 out of 10, but I do love Memento. Star Wars Episode 5, Empire Strikes Back, The Usual Suspects, The Princess Bride, Back to the Future, The Sixth Sense, John Carpenter's The Thing, Jaws, Godfather 2, Raiders of the Lost Ark, Snatch, Casino, Big Lebowski, Die Hard, Blade Runner, Airplane, Batman 89, Idiocracy, Aliens, Shaun of the Dead, Office Space, Ghostbusters, Monty Python, The Holy Grail, Hitchcock's Rear Window, Vertigo, Citizen Kane, Groundhog Day, RoboCop, Major League, Planet of the Apes, Spinal Tap, Fletch, Pee Wee's Big Adventure, A Christmas Story, and that's the end of the tens. So those, in my opinion, are perfect movies that I have watched in my lifetime. Obviously, perfect depending on genre more than anything. Like, you can't say A Christmas Story is as good as The Godfather Part 2, but if you're looking for a damn good Christmas movie, Christmas Story is where you go. Same with Shawshank Redemption. That's a masterful movie. It's very different from Jaws, but at the same time, it's like what they're trying to do, it's perfect. Idiocracy isn't a 10 out of 10 movie, but I live Idiocracy every day. Once or twice a day, it's like, yep, there it is. So for predicting the future, they get an extra point. There's where Han and Leia have their romantic makeout moment, and your hands are cold, or whatever. Like, your hands are dirty. My hands are dirty too. I love that bit of business. Vader's talking to his different generals, and they're being presented in holograms. And I mentioned the in the original trilogy, the little hologram conference things. They're sort of shaky. They look like bad video. But in the prequels, they look much better. Like they're like perfect, 1080p image. Everything's all clear and in 3D, which makes no sense. Why would the technology get worse? But I prefer the sort of hologram look, the holographic, where it's like flickering. So we came back to Vader, and he's talking to his generals in hologram form, and we see one of the ships get blown up, and then we see that general disappear. Like, I love that part. It's like subtle little background jokes that don't really have much to do with anything other than, oh, you kill me. So there's the first real look we ever get at Palpatine. I believe they've replaced. Wait, it used to be a woman, I think, who played Palpatine. And I believe this is, they went back and redid, what's his name? Ian, whatever. And they're talking about the whole offspring of Anakin. Yeah, this used to look way different now that I'm thinking about it. This version, it's like a giant headshot of Palpatine. And as a kid growing up, I thought it was like more full body or like whatever, like a smaller version. Yeah, he's got these crazy like yellow eyes. And as I recall, they're like baboon eyes, I think, is where they got that kind of eye from. So here we get the whole like quick exposition plot. We talked about this with A New Hope. Having all these amazing British actors play these people who have to explain the story. Like most of the good guys in this movie, Harrison Ford, Carrie Fisher, all them, they're just reacting to what's going on. All of the exposition and plot points and storytelling, they get done by people who speak like this. Very proper, very easy to understand, somewhat condescending. And then we talked also last night during A New Hope about Lucas being heavily influenced by Tolkien in the whole Lord of the Rings stuff. So Luke inside Yoda's little hut here and having to duck down. This is total, Gandalf clunking his head around inside a hobbit house. And Luke's stupid ass. I falsely said last night don't know what I was thinking. I mistakenly spoke, but when this movie came out, there was so much anticipation for it. There were so many folks who were anxious to find out what was going to happen, with the sequel to Star Wars. Um, that some of the pictures leaked and some of the action figures came out before the movie. So, like, I knew what Yoda basically looked like. So, when they introduce him in the movie and you're like, well, that's Yoda, when Luke doesn't understand it, you're kind of like, you dummy. Um, that's often a storytelling idea. Um, when we're trying to evolve a story, sometimes you tell the audience knows more than the characters in the movie. So like we know what's happening as they're living through it, and we're kind of like judging their decisions because we know what they don't know. But then there's other times where the audience and the characters in the movies are synced up, like we're learning stuff as they're learning stuff. So here we were ahead of Luke, and now Luke's kind of caught up to us. um I mentioned Tarantino frequently because he was one of the screenwriters I studied to learn the craft. Also, I read a book by Lawrence Kasdan, which is funny. We mentioned him earlier. He was part of the screenwriting for this. Um, Sorry, this puppet performance, it's so hard to like even keep my train of thought because every time they cut to him, I think it looks so much better than CGI. Like the individually little stitched hairs and stuff. Like it doesn't look fake. His eyes, like you can tell they're just like marbles, but they look so much better than the computers. Never had his mind on where he was, what he was doing. I say that to my son a lot. He looks at me like I'm a weirdo because I am. You are reckless. Yeah, the CGI stuff in the prequel, the Yoda made by a computer, just doesn't stand. It doesn't hold a candle to this at all. Like looking at his face, it looks like a little old man. It looks like George Burns is in there. Oh God, you Dagobah or something. I'm not afraid. You will be. Very Oscar the Grouch there, though, or Grover. Yeah. For those of you in the chat watching, which Yoda, or do you prefer Yoda or Grogu, the baby Yoda, as he's often known? I put a poll on the channel, and Yoda stomped all over him. I think it was like 84-16 or something. The traditional Yoda, especially the Empire one, is sort of a beloved icon. But I imagine it's also eras. There are folks who grew up only with Baby Yoda, so of course it's like, why would I like that old stupid fake puppet looking one? And here's the coolest. This movie has so many like dramatic, scary parts in it. Um, I think that's part of where Return of the Jedi gets off the track, and a bunch of the other stuff. The Disney things. The actual oh well, I take that back. The Rise of Skywalker or whatever that has like some whole zombie stuff in it, and there it's kind of scary. But other than that, they get away from the terror that goes along with a lot of Star Wars. This whole thing with the Minox sucking on them, chewing on the power cables. When that thing, it looks like a what are they called, algae eater, and it's like sucking on the window of the Millennium Falcon, and we see like this giant mouth thing. It's terrifying. This scene too, they also have these like weird respirator dealies on. When I was a kid, you would save up. I started to mention it before they started slamming doors outside. You would buy the action figures, and then on the Hasbro or whatever the Kenner cardboard panels that the characters would come on. There'd be like the little Star Wars points or whatever, and then GI Joe had the same thing and stuff. And you would accumulate these little cardboard cutout points, then you would mail them into some wherever, and you would get back a rare action figure. Or sometimes you would get like weird little odds and ends. And one time I remember getting a package from, just a weird cardboard box from Kenner or whatever. And you open it up, and it was a bunch of accessories for like Empire Strikes Back Star Wars play. So there was two or three of these little like respirators, the grappling hook that Luke had for when he climbed up on the AT-AT. There's just a handful of things that they included from the movie. So that's my first thought when I see their respirators is, hey, I had that toy, which is what I think about a lot of this movie. I mentioned last night when we were talking about the Millennium Falcon as a toy, like the ability to take the top off it and all the little cool stuff and the smuggler's compartment that was in it. I loved all that. It's amazing. And by making the Falcon never quite work right and having all these like electrical issues and stuff, the lights going off and on and dimming because of the Falcon's doing it is also sort of visually, cinematic, I should say. So there he is. He flies away. The big I mentioned Moby Dick shot, the Pinocchio escaping the whale. I had as a kid, I had a audio book of this before audiobooks were things. I know people have audiobooks now, but back when I was a kid, the kids' audiobooks, they would be like a kind of almost like a golden book. It was a small, maybe 10, 15 page book with some, color pictures and stuff. And then it would come with a cassette tape. And the cassette would be like an audio play of Empire Strikes Back. And I think it's floating around. You can probably find that on YouTube. Um, and it would just tell the whole story in a condensed version, a Cliff's Notes version. And a lot of the sound effects and then, the atmosphere and a little bit of the score and everything. And I had an Empire Strikes Back. Oh, wow, that's a bad Yoda puppet, though. When Luke is running and he's doing his training, which I love, because this is total ninja training stuff. And then we see, in the first one, he's this sort of dopey, weak, ineffectual, like farm boy. Oh, I don't know. I want to go to Tashi Station and hang out with my friends. And now here he's in this, middle of a jungle, desert, or what do you call it, swamp area with all these vines. And he's doing these backflips and lifting rocks with one hand and stuff. So when they cut to him with Yoda on his back, it was a bad looking Yoda puppet. It was clunky. Sorry, I was distracted by that bad Yoda puppet. But now we're back on track. Yoda's looking good again. Frank Oz is in control. R2 needs a bath. Oh, think there's that bad Yoda puppet. That's animatronic, you can tell. There's classic Yoda. So many of these shots like have been still shots over the years, like, for posters and, covers of various. So Yoda sitting on that log next to Luke's blue backpack. I've seen that image so many times of Yoda. Like I mentioned, Vader sitting in that egg, that um, Han and the carbonite, Luke and Vader in Cloud City at the end with the silhouettes and stuff. Like so much of it's like just iconic imagery. I'd say this is a perfect movie. It's a 10 out of 10. And this is classic warrior ninja type stuff. He's going to face the training and he fails at his training and then he's like, "You don't need your weapons." And he takes them anyways. It's like, "Luke, just listen, man." Because talk weird he doesn't mean you should not listen. Listen, you do not. Oh, another 2 minutes of commercials. And who's this? Nicole Richie? Oh wow, you're laying all sorts of crap on me. Nanette is here. Hello, everyone. Russell Collier says farts, right? Uh, I often think of there's a neighbor kid who looks like the little boy from Raising Arizona. So every time I see him, I'm like, let me guess, you got to run home and write fart on a wall somewhere. New banner placement. it's really me placement, really. A few episodes of back, I don't know about 10 episodes ago. It was like this. I mix it up. I get bored. Anyways, welcome, makers of movies. Stacy, nice to have you here. Um, what would you name this if not the current title? I don't know. That's one of the many things that's kind of perfect. They have these lame. The ones after this are so lame, and I don't ever like any of them. The Phantom Menace and the Rise of Skywalker, the Last Jedi. They all sound the Clone Wars or whatever. They all sound so like just contrived. Um, the Phantom Menace. Give me a break. Um, but yeah, these ones before we sort of have an idea of Star Wars and what Star Wars does, these all feel right. A New Hope feels dumb and tacked on once you know later on, like episode one and or episode four, A New Hope. Like, oh, okay, well that does explain Skywalker and all that. But what would I call this if not The Empire Strikes Back? Um, hmm. Billy D. Williams is likable no matter what. Is that too long for a title? I don't know if it fit on the poster. Have I been to California? No, I have not. I'd always kind of like to go, especially to the Hollywood area specifically. I'd like to just wander around. I like the idea that this living city is actually also kind of like intertwined, intermingled with production stuff, movie stuff. See this corner right here? That's where Bullet chased so and so and crushed a fruit stand. Don't forget your failure at the cave, Luke. This is genuinely scary and sort of psychologically cool and all of it. Like, he's here on Dagobah and he goes in and we're getting all these shots of snakes and Komodo dragons and it's all wet and dark and there's nothing kid movie about this. This doesn't feel like a fantasy family movie right now. This is some scary stuff. And then they go to that like, shock moment. It's almost like a jump scare where Vader comes walking out and then Luke just takes him down. And we go to slow mo too, which even makes it like kind of dreamlike and stuff. And then when he cuts Vader's head off or smacks him in the face or whatever, and then we see it's him in there, we kind of get the idea, the early seeds of this is a story about Luke Skywalker not growing into the same villain his father was. Family dysfunction. It even works in space operas in a galaxy far, far away. Let's see here. Hello, Stacy. Hello, Don. And thank you. Now I knew you were floating around. I was wondering where you would be. You'll be happy to know that Jack is being a good boy tonight. I'm glad Jack is being a good boy. I wish I had a treat to give him. Here you go, Jack. Yeah, this scene is just so amazingly creepy, and then the mask explodes, and we see Luke's face in there, and all this is in slow mo, and it looks like it's in slow mo in editing, not slow mo in camera. Um, filming it in through the camera, you change the speed of the rate at which the film is going through the camera, but in editing, you just slow it down or speed it up. It's a different effect, and that looks like it was slowed down in post. And here's the dope ass Vader interviewing bounty hunters. Like as a kid, once again, one of the many scenes that just sort of captures your imagination. Star Wars, one of the keys before the whole prequelitis thing started was that it had so many characters that just sort of floated around the background and we didn't really know much about, but that's what made them interesting. So like, this dude that looks like a giant ant and this what's his name? 4LM, for the love of money, or 4LOM. And Boba Fett and all that, like just these characters you sort of make up in your own mind what they're up to. We don't need to see their backstories. That weird sort of alligator looking dude. Once again, getting shot up. We're back to where we're at. But if the Millennium Falcon isn't landed, let's start over in English. If the Millennium Falcon if the Millennium Falcon is not landed somewhere, they're totally screwed. Like they pretty much can't be out in space. They're going to get attacked. So they're kind of establishing like you need to get somewhere and settle there, which is good because it makes the decision to go to Cloud City feel like a good one. Is it okay to like Star Wars 1877 the best? Yes, it is. Um, like I think the cowboy hats. I mentioned before, I wanted to see Star Wars as a Western. When Disney bought it, I was like, they need to make like a Tombstone type show or like a, what's it called, Deadwood, except with Star Wars characters. So yes, please hit me up with 1877. Have Django come and just kill all the rebels or the Imperial people. Oh, anyways, so yeah, we're this is the part where the Falcon, kind of sidles up next to one of the Star Destroyers, and then later on he floats away with the rest of the garbage. Lando, it's not a system; it's a man, a card player, a gambler, scoundrel. You'd like him. Yeah, here's the scene I was mentioning earlier, where Luke's doing one hand handstands, and he's got Yoda balanced on his leg, and he's lifting rocks. Um, Part of what I love about this movie is that in these first three, this trilogy, is Luke's character arc. It's one of the best like character arcs over a trilogy of movies I've seen. Lord of the Rings later on is good because they knew to follow this. Um, but like I said, we meet Luke and he's this dopey kind of like light blonde haired farm boy, and he's like, "Gosh, I want to go to Tashi Station." And then in the second one, we see him training and sort of taking his bumps and facing failures and standing up in the face of battles he's not ready for and all that. And then by the time Return of the Jedi comes around and he's in all black and he's like kind of a ninja, he talks all calm and wise suddenly. So this middle block here, the second act of Luke's character arc, I love it. Hear you nothing I say. Listen, when Yoda yells at him and chews him out and stuff, you must unlearn what you have learned. I'll give it a try. No, try not. Do or do not. There is no try. That will be enough of my Yoda impersonation. I'm lying. I'm gonna do this thing for the rest of the movie. I may do every Billy D. Williams in line in Yoda. We'll see. Well, well, well. What have we here? Hello, princess. Sorry to arrive late. Oh, do not worry about it. Uh, by this time in this month, people are very Star Warsed out, and I understand it. I The early part of the month on May 4th, so many people do Star Wars things, and so many people talk about Star Wars stuff, and there's just so much Star Wars content around. Um, but with these movies coming out and Disney, I don't know. I feel like Disney's gonna have to do something with Star Wars soon. They're gonna have to sell it or rethink it or something because it's clearly not working. It they did the way like corporate hedge fund people do. Like they bought a very expensive property and they milked it for all it was worth, and then they're going to kind of sell off the assets and make their money back even more. And whoever ends up having this will have a distressed property that they have to rebuild. So here, we also talked about this last night with the idea that the prequels undermine the idea of the Force in these movies. In particularly the stuff Yoda says here. It's all around us. It binds us, blah blah blah. And it always made me as a kid feel like the Force was something that a very spiritual person, no matter who they could be, could tap into. You have to, be at peace with yourself and the universe and feel things around you and all that. So when they get into the whole midichlorian thing in the prequels, it's like, you kind of ruined it. You made it more of an X-Men thing where like only the special mutants can have it, not anybody. I mean, who amongst us has not tried to levitate something or tried to convince one of their friends that these aren't the droids they're looking for? That is too funny. I don't think I've ever really absorbed that. When Luke says he can't lift his X-wing out of the swamp, and then Yoda kind of chews him out and tells him, do or do not. There is no try. And then Yoda lifts it up, right? Luke goes over and like pouts. he goes over and plops down Indian style or crisscross applesauce. Sorry, I don't mean to be offensive. And he crosses his legs and he just sort of like pouts, like harumph. He was like, "Pull yourself together, Luke." The score here, I have it muted so I don't get in trouble with YouTube, but the score here as the X-wing rises up out of the swamp and like just this, fanfare of amazement is that shot too, the far wide shot where we see the X-wing lift up and fly towards Luke and Luke's way in the back in the center of the screen. Perfect. I'm glad that Lucas, as we mentioned before, I think I got derailed by something. Uh, when Lucas directed the first one, and then he wanted to pass this on. I had mentioned us, Stacy. I'm sure you'll probably see on the replay or something. I had some fun at my own expense regarding Irvin Kershner and directing Body Heat. A lot of people think he did. Apparently, he did not. That was an internet rumor. Um, but in this, Lucas said that he hated directing the first one because he basically the actors didn't respect him and the crew didn't respect him, and it was just a big old problem. He didn't like doing this thing. He felt like everybody was breathing down his neck to get it done. He didn't get to make the movie he wanted totally, but he sort of pulled it off. So he decided when the second and the third one, well, the fifth and the sixth one came out, that he was going to try to take more control of the big picture, and then directing was something he was willing to hand off to someone else, and particularly like the camera work and the directing the actors and stuff. So once again, we're down another Imperial general. Maybe he's a colonel. I think he was an admiral, right? You're in charge now, Admiral Piet. I can't keep track of the Imperial naval fleet. A lot of clean faces. The rebels, they all got mustaches. That shows they're fun. They're swingers on the weekend. When this war isn't going on, they like to live it up. But not these Imperial blokes. Very reserved, very tight-assed. So many of these shots of the Imperial fleet and the different star destroyers and all this amazing. Like they look like the Imperial ships alone. They look like giant knives in the sky. Like they look like a butcher knife the way they're shaped. And I'm sure that's by design. We want them to look like a battleship, but we also want it to look like you could stab somebody with it. What's my wife's favorite movies? What does she like? What are her favorite movies? Labyrinth. I mentioned. I think we talked about this once before. I was Labyrinth. She enjoys a lot. She watches a lot of the stuff. She's seen all the Disney stuff. She's watched a lot, almost all the Pixar stuff. She loves Shrek. Uh, I think she likes white chicks. That's one of the ones we disagree with. My comedy is more towards Idiocracy. Her comedy is more towards white chicks. I think that's one we draw the line on. Um, uh, does Hoth have a ski resort? Right? Like that's what I thought Disney would do when they purchased this. It's like why not open up Hoth ski resorts? Fake little wampas and stuff along the way. Those damn probe droids floating there like robot squids. Make Ewok Chucky. Yeah, the way they make like those Ninja Turtles mixed with the Universal monsters and all that stuff. Do that, except give me an Ewok Chucky, and then give me a Chucky Furby. I think they made an Ewok Furby. I think I've revealed I know too much. C-3PO owned movie set on Earth. I always have found a C-3PO to be such an annoying character. Um, Those two droids, I think, in the first movie, they're just sort of comical and they're supposed to be like, oh, this is a movie about or a world where robots have their own adventures and stuff. But then later on, they kind of figured out they're sort of these like Rosencrantz and Guildenstern characters who are just sort of living their life and they almost like Forrest Gump or whatever. Like craziness goes on around them and they just see a whole bunch of cool things. But I also feel like R2D2 kind of, he's an adventure seeker. C3PO, he's more of a coward. It's like Scooby Doo and Shaggy. Through the forest, things you will see. There, I already did a Yoda impersonation. I broke my own promise. Old friends, long gone. You got to hand to Mark Hamill though. He does look more like a man in this one. Like he's built buffed up a little bit. He's supposed to look like a dude who's training to become a great warrior. Wars not make one great. Follow that bird esque. Oh, like C3PO, but follow that bird. I like it. I'll take it. Never mind. I changed my mind. How about a remake of Starman, except C3PO is inside, hanging out with Karen Allen, or who's the new Karen Allen, Natalie Portman, or is yeah. I remember one time this was being discussed, and your wife said that she like that's what her another one is. I was going to say I knew at another point we discussed some of her favorite movies. Yeah, Dirty Dancing I think is her probably her main one. Labyrinth. The new baby's not even a month old, and she's already seen Labyrinth. Nightmare Before Christmas is another one. She has a lot of Jack Skellington stuff. Jack and Sally. The baby also has seen Nightmare Before Christmas. Today she's like 32 days old and she's just laying there just peacefully watching Jack Skellington. Mark Hamill looks like such a sad sack there. Like he's like, no, I gotta leave. Talking about the perfect cinematography of this, like we've been through all this like night stuff with these crazy neon lights and the cool lit up. I mentioned C3PO's reflection and all the stuff inside the Millennium Falcon. Now we get to uh, what's it called, Vespa, whatever the hell it is. They're the Cloud City, um, and then we get those damn like biplanes or whatever. It's like two little cars connected. It looks like the guns in Black Hole. Um, and it's just like two little speeders connected by a thing in the middle. It's a totally dumb design. I don't know why anybody would ever make that. It's like, hey, we have a ship where if one guy gets shot, the other one dies too, and there's no real purpose for having two people. But anyways, those ships they arrive here in Cloud City, and it's all like blue skies and orange at sunset, and these ships are painted orange because blue and orange go together. That's the look how many movie posters feature sort of an aqua and light orange reddish color to attract the eye. Apparently, it's the eye's favorite color. That's why I selected them for the color for my logo, actually. Um, which you can get at teespring.com. In the description, you will find a link to buy merch. Get yourself some Night Owl gear with the awesome logo behind me, as well as 19 other logos. That Batman logo and that Roddy Piper logo are a fire. So here we see, we hear, I got a bad feeling about this. And that's sort of the line that's echoed when we mentioned the sort of ripples in time that happened over and over. Wow, that is a bad matte painting. Um, every movie somebody says, I got a bad feeling about this. In this HD cut, I never noticed it before, but when the part where the Falcon has landed on um, the landing deck, and then Lando comes out and he's got Lobot with him and all that. You can sort of see behind the elevator that Lando comes out of. There's sort of like Cloud City in the distance in the background, but it's like it looks like an 8-year-old drew it. It looks like somebody with crayon. It's terrible. Does anybody else look at Lobot and wonder what he's listening to on his headphones? I always imagine it's or Mickey by Tony Basil, because that's around the time. You got to be maybe Valley Girl by Moon Unit Zappa. Um, have I been to Key West? I have not. I've been to several parts of Florida, but not Key West. Never been over to Miami, but I have been to Orlando and I've been to Naples. And like I say, I live in Tampa now. It's weird. I'm the most opposite of being a Florida person ever, but somehow I'm a Florida guy. Well, hello. What have we here? Can I interest you in a Colt 45 malt liquor? The casting of Billy D is perfect. I'm sad we never got to see Billy D as Two Face in those Tim Burton Batman movies. I didn't realize how short Lobot was before. I like that Billy D has made himself, he's the mayor or whatever, the governor of this little establishment here in this mining colony. And he wears a cape. Like at some point he decided, you know what, I'm going to need to get the respect I need around here as a cape. Nobody's going to tell Darth the cape looks ridiculous. They'll get their throat crushed. But, behind Billy D's back, there's a lot of snickering. I guarantee it. Sure. There's where C3PO sees the white version of himself. Um, and then he goes into the room, and this is like super scary as well. We don't know what's in here. Hey, what are you doing here? And then he gets blasted. And there, like I mentioned, we weren't sure when R2 got eaten by the damn swamp monster. We're like, maybe they would kill a robot off. So when they kill, blast C3PO to pieces there, you kind of are like, damn, maybe they killed that annoying character I don't like. Now, I always like C3PO. If nothing else, he's just sort of, I don't know, interesting. Like he bridges the gaps in exposition the same way the Imperial admirals do. So here's Alec Guinness showing up as Obi-Wan. I'm surprised they haven't replaced him with Ewan McGregor like they did with the old buddy who plays Anakin in the old Return of the Jedi, and then they totally eschewed him and brought in uh, Hayden Christensen. I almost called him Hayden Panettiere. That'd be awesome. Save the Jedi, save the world. Go 2 weeks to Cloud City? I don't know. I don't think so, actually. I'm afraid of heights, so I feel like every time, like the whole point, like to Cloud City would be like to go on those balconies and decks and stuff and get that beautiful sky, view. But if I'm all terrified, I'm gonna fall to like an endless death. That's such a funny little like there's a lot of good just throwaway comedy in this that isn't necessary. I had mentioned a couple other parts before there when Luke's trying to pack up and leave Dagobah and they're convincing him like you can't go. There's nothing you can do. You're better off just staying here and finishing your training, yada yada. And he reaches in like the turbine of the X-wing and pulls out a snake. Like, "Oh, what are you doing in here?" That's good. That's good Yoda acting right there. So much better. The puppets over CGI any day. Practical effects rule everything. Cream. Practical effects rule everything around me. Mind what you have learned, save what you can. Yoda with lots of little tidbits and nuggets of wisdom. That's part of the reason I've always loved Yoda. Very wise, very tiny, very evil, very nice. What is he? In this whole bit where they shoot this in the funky lighting, where like it's shadows and Yoda's face comes up on the one side and then it goes black, and as the X-wing takes off, like real overly dramatic operatic lighting. Yeah, it's like it's a children's story being told in almost like the most serious of ways. I had mentioned Dark Knight is another movie I think is a 10 out of 10. Same idea. Take a childish story that should just be stupid and I roll my eyes at it and then make me believe. And that's what this does. I believe that Harrison Ford and or, Han Solo and Princess Leia are on this like crazy city in the clouds. I don't trust Lando. Well, I don't trust him either. But he's my friend. I have a bunch of them. Um, I don't know, Stacy. Where in Star Wars besides Cloud City would you like to go? I would like to go to oh god, what's the planet that's a whole city? Um, I'd like to go there. Um, wouldn't mind. Oh, the Ugnaughts. Oh god, I love an Ugnaught. I remember the first time I saw them. It's like little pig people. What? And this was around the time Motel Hell was out too. So it's like, just, yeah, humans with pig heads will always make me stop and look. I always feel like in RoboCop when that dude gets all like mutated by the toxic slime or whatever, and he looks like an Ugnaught. Same with old buddy in Swamp Thing. Somebody in Swamp Thing catches a mutation and he looks like an Ugnaught. The world's full of Ugnaughts, is what I'm saying. Yeah, there's Princess Leia and her Lando approved outfit. That action figure lasted forever, boy, because she had like the extra like skirt around her legs so that you couldn't really move her legs very easily, so they didn't break. Once again, funny bit of business where he looks down at C-3PO completely destroyed in a bunch of business, like totally different pieces, and he's like, "Problem with your droid?" Yeah, a little bit, Lando. Thanks, bro. And we're gonna get hit with another 2-minute commercial. How dare you? I think this would be a perfect time for me to have a drink of liquid, primarily because I find drinking sand to be very difficult, although appropriate for Tatooine in the first one. Should have did it last night. Um, that being said, I encourage you to join us again tomorrow night where we watch Return of the Jedi. I encourage you to go into the back catalog and check out A New Hope. I encourage you to go to the back catalog and check out our watch along of the Star Wars Holiday Special. Boy, what a piece of crap that movie is. Um, all those and 100 other movie watch alongs currently available on Night Owl Movie Talk, live streams, commentaries for every need, any occasion. Also, I encourage you to snoop around the Night Owl Movie Talk page as a little hidden Easter egg. This far in the show, only the diehards hear what I'm talking about. I recently privated something like unlisted 200 videos, mostly shorts, a few reviews here and there. So those videos can only be found on playlists on my main channel. They're not searchable through Google or YouTube or anything. If you want to see bunch of reviews that no one else has seen. If you're a true Night Owl diehard, I encourage you to always snoop around the homepage. Also, a thing to snoop around I mentioned earlier is in the description. There's a link for a tip jar. You can PayPal me money for the fine work and entertainment I'm giving you here. But you can also, more appropriately, buy a home media version of the Star Wars box set. I'm a big fan of home media, even though I do a lot of streaming these days because it's easiest. I encourage everyone, if you love a movie, own it. And there's a link for Star Wars in there. There's also a link to get Night Owl merch. You can get yourself a T-shirt, a coffee mug, socks. Oh, Ugnaughts on lunch break. There's nothing cooler than an Ugnaught with a lunch pail, right? That's a good band name or a good improv group. Coming up, Ugnaught with a lunch pail. See, I like that they also are showing the more people around here on Cloud City. Like you can kind of see that there's families and little kids and stuff, and so you empathize with the choice that Lando made, even though he's a slimy punk. Oh, another classic dope scene coming up where he presses the door to the little dining area and Darth's sitting there behind the long table and he shoots at him and then he does like the force thing and pulls his gun away from him. Such an awesome scene. Boba Fett walks out and reveals like it's set up perfectly where you don't totally expect it. So the first time you see it, you kind of, I wanted to believe Billy D was a good guy. But like so many women in the past, I've been lied to by Billy D. Like when they do close ups of Chewie and you can kind of see he's got like a mustache. Like it's a little bit darker in the way they comb it and stuff. Looks kind of like an extra furry version of Cheech Marin. Luke's conversations with R2D2 are a lot like my conversations with my toddler. Very similar. No, I don't know why we're doing that. Put that down. That's not yours. Stop it. Hey, this way. And then, yeah, more dark awesomeness. This movie is so dark on, literally and figuratively, like the way, not just the ending and everything, but, here, C3PO's in bits. He's been blown up. We've got Chewie locked in a cage screaming. The lighting is just fantastic. It's his overhead through like this, like, the prison bars are above them, so the lighting comes down. It looks like they're trapped underneath a fan. And then the whole thing where they bring Han in after he's being tortured and he's just like, they didn't even ask me any questions. What's your favorite lightsaber fight? My second favorite one of all time is coming up. They Darth and Luke on flight fighting around up there, by the carbonite freezing chamber and all that. The way that room's lit, the fog, the steam and everything in there. When they go up in that one like patio area and they walk out on that long like balcony deal and uh, that antenna. Hey, here's where they're torturing Han. And this device looks gnarly. Like I don't know what it does, but it's scary. It's like, I don't know, it's just sort of a bunch of lasers and zappy thingies that they just, put you down close to. But then when Han comes back, it seems like he have a bunch of like burn marks or cuts on his shirt. So I think it scars you psychologically. You know, makes you think about like people you were mean to, you wish you hadn't been and stuff. I like that Lobot's just sort of a loyal henchman. Like he's a total crony to Lando. Whatever Lando's on, he's got his back on. And this is all good stuff too. They keep like, like any good story, it keeps evolving. You think it's going one direction and then it goes a little bit different way. Like I mentioned, the start of the movie, it looks like Leia's getting ready to leave with the rebels, but then she ends up getting stuck with Han and, this whole love triangle thing gets brewing. So here, they're supposed to just take Han and then, they alter the deal. Pray I do not alter it any further. This whole thing with they made this action figure too. I always go back to the toys with Star Wars. They made a Chewbacca, and then there was a like a little plastic sack that went on his back, like a kind of a net to the backpack, and then they had like a C-3PO you could take apart and put all the pieces in a little like knapsack for Chewie to carry around. That was the thing with Star Wars. They anticipated that everybody just wanted to reenact every situation. Like, remember that guy who says, "You better watch it." In the cantina, yeah, him. We got to make him. It's like they make the dumbest characters for no reason. What that guy who looks like a little bat? We need to make him. Why? And it's a her. And this is touching. Like they brought Han in, and he's all beat down after this whole thing. And Leia is like sweet to him for the first time. Like we start to see them having couple interactions. Up until this point, they kind of just bump heads, and it's sort of like trying to get their relationship going. But now it's pretty much going, and she's sweet to him. She cares for him after he's been tortured and stuff. But then they throw you that weird curveball at the end, like where when she rescues Luke and gives him a kiss again and all this. Like, what the hell, Leia? You're really, really keeping the flames burning until part three, huh? The lighting here is super harsh, though. Like this is one of the first like, and I don't mean like contrasty and shadowy. Like here, it looks almost fluorescent. Like you can see everybody's got acne, even Billy D. You can see Carrie Fisher's powder makeup on her face, real heavy. Yeah, this is one of the few poorly transferred scenes. Surprised they didn't put a little blur on it when they redid it. Once again, shooting Vader low angle, all orange except for where the carbonite freezing chamber is, which is like a light blue. Getting back to what I was talking about, that aquamarine and orange color combination that turns up all over the place everywhere because the human eye loves it. Super shadowy. You can barely even see Billy D's face in some of these shots. Oh, let's see here. Larry and Gareth did Navy SEALs today. I knew I forgot something. I saw yesterday that they had they were going to do one together, and I didn't get to see it because I was busy this afternoon. Mrs. Night Owl and the kids had to make a shopping trip for shoes and a few other things, and I was left with the little babies, so I ended up missing that. But thank you for reminding me to go ahead and watch the replay of that. I believe that's available on Video Tasty's channel. So otherwise, maybe they did a simulcast and it's on Larry's channel too. But either way, you can never go wrong with Navy SEALs and Gareth and Larry. So that's at the Horror Cat Dad and at Video Tasties on YouTube. Mark Hamill at age 35 would have been a good Waldo. You love the idea of casting Where's Waldo. Um, Mark Hamill's a fascinating person to me. Like he got typecast real bad because of Star Wars. Like after this, he couldn't really get much else work. Like whenever anybody would look at him, it's like, yeah, you look like Luke Skywalker. He's in John Carpenter's Body Bags. He grows a mustache, and he looks a little bit different. He plays like an ex-baseball player or something. Um, but then his career resurgence came when Batman the Animated Series came out, and he revealed that he could do all these crazy voices and stuff. He's the voice of the Joker on there. Um, so, all the images of Joker and Harley Quinn and stuff. There's Han and Leia's big dramatic ass kiss, and she tells him, I love you, and he says, I know. It's perfect. All the oranges and the blues and the gold, like the lighting scheme, the steam, like that's just visually masterful. Like it looks like a painting. It's yeah, this whole commentary is pretty much just me gushing over what a magnificent movie this is. Yes, Gareth and Larry did. Russell, how you rank these films from the original trilogy? Personally, I'm a Empire, Return of the Jedi, New Hope guy. Return of the Jedi and New Hope are kind of interchangeable, but like I say, I like it at the end of Jedi when Luke shows up in all black and the whole fight with his father and stuff. That whole stuff's really good to me. I enjoy the Ewoks too. A lot of people hate the Ewoks. Like they either think it's just a bunch of teddy bears or they think it's a very like heavy-handed metaphor for the Viet Cong or whatever. But in general, it's like, I don't know, they're fun. They're cute. I like Yoda because he's cute, but he's also cool. I like the idea that the Ewoks are sort of cute and they're kicking ass. Nobody complains about Chewbacca being giant and furry, so why are you complaining about those other people being tiny and furry? So there's Han and the Carbonite, and that is such a amazing like sculpt. Just the way like the drips along his mouth and stuff. It looks almost like he was drooling or like his mouth's full of the carbonite or whatever. It just looks gross. And then the like to add the futuristic stuff of it where like they put it on like the floating rolly cart and they're just sort of pushing it along. Out of any movie memorabilia, you can't ever go wrong with just having a Han and Carbonite in your house. Like if I went over to somebody's house and there was a Han Solo leaning up against the wall, I'd be like, I dig it. I dig it. And then, yeah, the acting and everything, like the way Carrie Fisher or the way Princess Leia clings to Chewbacca, like this whole thing is so messed up, and she can't believe she fell in love with this dude, and now he's been frozen and probably is dead. And she like Chewie's hugging her, and she's snugged up like you know, it's perfect. Even there, that shot, wow, that's amazing. The blue and the yellow together. So now here Luke has arrived on Cloud City, and I love this too. I would say we should have had I love this counter where Cloud City, which was this vibrant place with all these families and all these people and Lobots and Ugnaughts walking around and stuff, suddenly it's dead. Nobody's there. The hallways are empty. It's spooky. So then, much as I mentioned the way Obi-Wan sort of sneaking around in the Death Star and like messing with the back of like different power converters and all these things. It looks like he's on the back of the elevator on that one scene. That's kind of the same deal. The guy snooping around quietly, Die Hard. You know, and then Luke and Boba Fett shooting at each other. Classic face-off, if only for a minute. And just perfect, like the I mentioned earlier, the ensemble cast and their different, different adventures that they're on. And when Leia kind of gets a brief look at Luke, and then there's that part where Lando kind of sees Luke and is like, "Who is this guy I've been hearing about? That's him, this white boy." Oh, no, he wants somebody named Skywalker. Gareth says he's not a fan of Star Wars. Or Gareth Russell says he's not a fan of Star Wars. Yeah, we discussed this before. Russell, he's not a fan of these movies. He's pretty much just here to support me because Russell's awesome. But I would rank, yeah, I would say um, Empire perfect, Return of the Jedi really good, enjoyable for me. I could understand how other folks would like A New Hope better, but New Hope has its flaws. They didn't, as Lucas gets into trouble of doing, he wants to do stuff with technology that he can't quite pull off, and A New Hope has a bunch of that. Oh, that what an amazing scene! This is yeah. So sorry, Luke just came up that elevator into this blue room, and just the way he shot so crisp and shadowy, and like the tone of it, and when the lights come on, and I had mentioned how creepy it was because it's empty, so it feels almost like a haunted house movie or something. And then there's Vader. The framing, everything. Luke walking up those orange steps to go up to the blue level or later Vader is on. I'm sorry, I got tongue twisted. I'm uh I'm so fanboy and geeked out right now over how amazing this scene is. And the close-ups of their face with the lightsabers reflecting off it and stuff. The cinematography is 10 times better than A New Hope. And this whole thing where Vader's fighting him with one hand. Luke's holding his like a samurai sword, like using two hands to try to control it, and then he's holding his more like a fencer, like a what are they called, rapier or whatever, a foil. In this one, I'd mentioned how lame the lightsaber fight was between Obi-Wan and Darth. Like it's just two dudes going, "Okay, you go, no, no, you go, okay, no, no, you go, okay, no." Right? Like this is more spinning around, and you see them like kind of helicopter and fly and everything. They look so much more cooler. I still say the best lightsaber fight in all of them is probably Phantom Menace, then this, then that one with the Praetorian Guard or whatever they're called, those Crimson Guard mugs in Last Jedi. But even that, a little too overdone. Too much flippy floppy, too much like parody of fight scene. Another classic good comedy bit that you wouldn't think to throw in this serious ass scene, but when they uncuff Chewie and the first thing he does is start choking Lando. Last still chance to say on. Billy D needed to be in more stuff. Like that's part of the problem with Billy D. Williams. He didn't work enough. I think he must have been difficult to work with or something. There, that shot of Boba Fett on what do you call it, landing what's the word I'm looking for? The area where the damn Slave One has landed on, the little deck outside, and then like it's like perpetually sunset there, so everything's just always like pretty orange clouds and everything. This is the movie of the most still shots I've ever seen from one movie. You can remember iconic images from most stuff, but this one was just our nerd cup runneth over. There's Slave One taking off. Yeah, that's bad. The composite and the way it moved and stuff. For Lucas being a master of making spaceships move, that was kind of eh. I think that's sort of what you sacrifice. When Lucas is in charge, those space scenes in A New Hope are perfect. And here we get much better everything else, but the space stuff kind of suffers a little bit here and there. Once again, another amazing scene where Luke's like down on one knee, holding himself up, and then like he's trying to fight off Vader, and Vader knocks his sword away from his lightsaber away from him, and then it flies down in kind of this spinny neon helicopter thing. And here he backs him up and backs him up till he falls into the carbonite freezing, and then he does like this amazing like fly up real fast. You miss it if you don't, if like you haven't seen it before. And all that steam comes out perfect, the orange, the yellow, the blue, the white, the red saber. Like this scene visually, it's like massaging my eyes. It's beautiful to look at. And then just yeah, this lightsaber thing, it's as where the one in the Phantom Menace is based around just like personalities and actual crazy sword fighting. This one is more based around like they're sword fighting and they're throwing crap at each other and they're doing flips and trying to climb things, and it's more about the environment than it is the skills of the swordsman. One of many, many millions of movies that ends with a steam factory. Um, so many movies: Terminator 1, Terminator 2, pretty much any alien movie. They always end up in this sort of foundry area where it's like, there's machinery and stuff that you don't understand what it's doing, and, molten lava. And, in um, The Last Jedi, it's liter or not Last Jedi, Last Jedi. No, what's the one? The 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 third one, Revenge of the Sith. True, the see what I mean with those stupid titles? They're so contrived I can't even remember them. In Revenge of the Sith, where they actually have like a literal like lava fight, something about ending up in these sort of industrial areas with all this smoke and everything. That's a perfect scenery or setting for climax at the end. And this whole thing where they're fighting in front of this big circular like Amityville window, and then he throws them out the window. And Luke looks like such a hapless dolt. He's like just blindly swinging his lightsaber at anything. It's like, yeah, just take your L, Luke. You got your ass kicked on this one, buddy. You're about to get sucked out a giant picture window. Bye, Luke. Have a nice trip. See you next movie. That scene right there where he's dangling from the cliff like a literal cliffhanger, um, 'cause sort of an all we're getting ready to come up to the all is lost moment in this, and it's about as perfect as it can be. Like, he's lost the hand. He refuses to give up to Vader, and he's got him out there on that antenna dangling for his life. And he tells him like, I'm your father. And Luke says no, and he just lets go and sacrifices himself. It's like our main character just killed himself. Oh boy. Attention! The Empire is taking control of the city. I advise everyone to leave before the Imperial troops arrive. And be sure to take a Colt 45, cold and refreshing. Sorry, I got caught watching again. The way Cloud City's set up, where like there's all these control panels, and like at one point R2D2 just kind of like walks up and sticks his little weird R2D2 dong in the side of a control panel and gets fried. He catches space herpes from this computer. And then, like, at one point, Billy D just walks over to a thing and pulls out like a little microphone and says, "Hey, everybody, you need to get out of here." So many stormtroopers. Chewie, you'll never be able to hold them off. Just run, bro. Run. Do you think there's a lot of static electricity around Chewbacca? Like, it seems like he's a shock waiting to happen. Like, if you got too close to him. Let's see here. Do you like Battle Beyond the Stars, Owl and Russell? I do. That's the Roger Corman Sybil Danning deal with John Boy Walton, right? Um, uh, I enjoy it. That was one that was on TV a lot. I mentioned Star Wars. Part of the problem was they protected the property too much. Like I saw it in theaters and I saw it in drive-ins, but the amount of times I saw it on television before it was available to own on VHS at home was very limited. As where Battle Beyond the Stars was always on. And even as a little kid, even before I was into the loveliness of ladies, Sybil Danning is she's an attractive lady. She'll catch your attention. Sorry. It's okay. You don't have to apologize. Mark Hamilton was on NCIS, and that's what I remember him from. Yeah, I mean, he does a lot of like Comic Cons and things. Like I say, he's the voice of the Joker. But the cool thing I like about Mark Hamill is he's apparently a storyteller. Like a lot of folks on who did Star Wars, like Harrison Ford, getting him to talk about Star Wars on a talk show or something is impossible. Like you don't ever hear Harrison Ford's podcast where he's like, George Lucas is an idiot, or like we don't get that. But Mark Hamill will sit and talk to you about Star Wars for hours, about what it was like to work with all the people and how his life was from Star Wars and stuff. So he sort of just like embraces the whole journey. And he's cool with Kevin Smith, and he's what do you call it? Cock knocker in Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. It is useless to resist. Don't let yourself be destroyed as Obi-Wan did. There's good speed to this too, though, where they're fighting. This is such a better sword fight or lightsaber fight than the first one. So there goes the hand, and suddenly he's got like cholera. He was fine, and now he's like completely pale. And I mean, I'm assuming his hand got cut off. He's probably tripping, bro. I don't understand the physics of Cloud City either. Like, what's with this big hole with an antenna pointing down, or a weather vane, or whatever this is? Like, you've got a lot of explaining to do, Billy D. Williams. If you only knew the power of the dark side. Yeah, I keep thinking of David Prowse doing it. Do you only knew the power of the dark side? He told me you killed him. No. Supposedly, I don't know if this is true. That's the legend that George Lucas and a lot of the people say, but I've heard other folks argue it, is that because this was David Prowse, this big, strong dude or whatever inside the Darth Vader outfit, and then he he said something different to Mark Hamill here, but later on when they did the audio dub with James Earl Jones, that's where they added the line like, "No, I'm your father," or whatever. So, most people, according to the legend, even people in the movie, didn't know this was the plot line until they saw the finished movie in the theater. I find that hard to believe. And I've heard other, like, Harrison Ford stuff kind of roll his eyes at things. You know, the times he does talk about Star Wars, he just sort of like, I don't know. And there's where Luke lets go of the weather vane and just drops and plummets. It's later echoed when Ben Solo, aka Adam Driver, when he kills Han Solo, spoiler alert, and he falls to his doom. Much in the same way as when Darth Maul plummets to his doom in a scene that looks almost exactly the same. Mace Windu goes out that way. Star Wars loves to just retell the same. They like to take the same soup and reheat it. So yeah, I think the first one was an antenna, and this is a weather vane. Lots of dangling pipes in Cloud City. It seems like some sort of OSHA violation. What are all these dangly sticks? I don't know why I'm Nick Nolte. And just that's a funny bit of thing. Like he falls down this big, huge tunnel, should have died, ends up going into this like weird sort of water slide, comes to a stop, hole opens, drops out, falls onto this like weather vane thing. He's hanging there, about ready to climb up, and then the door closes. It like got real slapsticky Three Stooges here. If it had alternate sound effects, it'd be like womp womp. Once again, blue and orange skies. And then here, this is what I talk about. Luke reaches out and he can't, get anybody to help him. So he decides just out of the blue to try to connect with Leia. So later on, we learn that him and Leia have the same blood. That's why she has it. But it felt like Luke had picked her out. Like out of everybody I know, who's the most likely to be cool enough to feel my Force vibes? As I mentioned in the prequels, they established it's your midichlorian count. Duh. But I liked it better that he kind of thought through the people in his life that he loved and cared about and who like could feel him if they cared to, and he decided Leia. look, someone's up there. I like that Chewie and Leia's relationship is really developed. Like it's like her new. You're my dog now. You ever have a friend whose dog likes you better than they like them? That's what's kind of going on there. Luke with one hand is just I don't know. I would like to see a whole movie like that movie Fall, where those people climb up the big like cell phone tower and get caught up there or whatever. I would like to see a 2 hour Star Wars movie with just Luke dangling from his weather vane, like open water, except Luke dangling from the bottom of Cloud City. It just bothered me even as a kid too. They go and rescue Luke, and they send Lando up there to get him. Like, shouldn't Chewie be there? Like I don't understand why when Luke's half dead and he looks down and he's like, "Is it Billy D. Williams? Why are you here?" And yes, I'd love a malt liquor, thank you. So we're coming up to the most part of the reason this is the best movie ever is it has the balls to end sad. Because they knew it was a trilogy, like most movies, you have to kind of leave people in suspense of what's going to happen, right? Like, or well, you want the story to tell itself, right? Like should be a compact story in case there is no sequel or any more sequels. But then you also want to leave it open enough where if you do another story, there's enough material there to mine, right? So it's a delicate line to walk. So once they know that part two will definitely have a part three, they can stagger the story properly. Lord of the Rings, when it came out, wasn't going to be three movies. It was supposed to be two at first. But that's a different pacing. You know what I mean? Three is how you tell a story. You establish the characters and the joke, you reinforce the expectation, and then you have a punchline. One, two, three. That's how it works. Like the 1-2 is weird. Like so since this knows that there's another third one coming, they can end on like the sad tragedy. As I mentioned, it's very operatic. Sorry, we're on a commercial for Wigovi. Apparently me and my homies at the basketball court are going to take it. I'm not totally sure what it does. Something to do with blood sugar. Let me see. Who would you cast as Leisure Suit Larry in the movie? Who would I cast as Leisure Suit Larry in the movie? I don't know. The guy from RoboCop who says I'd buy that for $1. Ben Stiller? Sure, him too. Best modern picture book? I don't know. Everything went digital, and I haven't bought any real books in so long. Um, I think the reason they don't complain about Chewbacca is because he doesn't talk, and you don't like the little creatures talking. I suppose. I mean, I think the cutesiness of it, and people knew that Star Wars was a marketing thing. So when you see the Ewoks, it feels like this is just a blatant attempt to cash in. I remember when I saw the Porgs in the Disney ones, the sequels, I was like, ugh, they might as well just have product on them. Like they don't exist to serve any purpose other than to try to sell Porgs as a toy. Corvette Summer is good. I don't know if I've ever seen it. I think I did when I was a kid, but I don't remember it. Do you like cheese curds? I do. I like hot cheese curds, breaded, and then you dip them in ranch. But cold cheese curds, like they have in Wisconsin, I don't like. I mean, they're all right. It's just a hunk of cheese, but it's like eating any. It doesn't. The fact it's a curd doesn't mean anything. You have cheese cubes. It's the same thing. This has been Cheese Talk. The Big Run one, Hamill War movie. I don't think I ever saw that. Okay, I'm wrong. Thinking about somebody else. May the force be with you, Ben. May the force be with you, Ben Grimm. Uh, mm, Mbop. Akbar deserved better. I agree. Yeah, that like I was mentioning last night, the fact that they killed that character off screen and then just mentioned it in a throwaway line, it was intended to be a slap in the face to the nerds. You know, oh, by the way, Admiral Akbar died. It's like you're not going to show him get. We can't see him make a face and then his ship explode. We don't have time for that. So yeah, here's where we have one last little gasp of excitement. Vader tells they tell Vader that they've took apart the hyperdrive on the Millennium Falcon, and then we see them fixing it real quick. And R2 explains to him, that the city's central computer told him, so they fix it real fast. And then when he takes off, we see that look on Admiral Priet's face like, uh-oh, I'm about to get choked out. So it feels like the story is telling us, they're going to get caught, but then we see this big escape. And we get that classic scene of them looking out into like the weird, like, Crab Nebula or whatever that is. And here we see Vader connect to Luke, and the idea that they could, like, they're in each other's brains and they're talking and they're communicating, and it sort of shows, like, even though he wants to deny that that's his father, that he's already accepted it. Even his father. It's like, damn, it only took you to lose a hand and you're already accepting it. But this is part of Luke's journey, though. Like, he loses the hand and then he gets the robot hand, and then slowly it's like, are you becoming your father? You're becoming a robot man too, just like he is. Do you like arachnophobia? It's all right. Spider movies are hard. Sometimes they're really good and they're scary and they give you the willies, and other times they look awful. Bye for now. See you, Russell. Thank you for hanging out, my friend. Glad to have you here, the Canadian King, Russell Collier. Being a spider lover, yes. You're a spider lover? Julian Sands, better Sith or Jedi? Sith. I couldn't find out much about him, but it's Wikipedia says Billy D. Williams was arrested on January 30th, 19 for allegedly assaulting his living girlfriend, whom the let's see when there's be more. Robin Williams, better Sith or Jedi? Ooh, Jedi. Another one of the classic scenes, Vader's perfectly polished helmet looking out into space as the Millennium Falcon flies away. And then we see old buddy just like, oh man, tell my wife and kids I love them. She pushed him too far. Police did not identify posted police the woman with the minor bruises and scratches. Um, just waiting the rest of the case and the plea bargain ones 0 to 52. And the 29-year-old woman said he never slapped or abused women. Billy D did give her 8 stern warnings. Well, 8 is a lot. Action Jackson 2 should have been Billy D and Carl Weathers. Yes. I kept thinking Billy D was in Action Jackson. And then I was like, no, no. Other People's Money, underrated Danny DeVito movie. Have you seen it? I have seen Other People's Money, and it is an underrated Danny DeVito movie. Danny DeVito in general, I find to be underrated. Make all the short jokes you want. Um, just as a director, filmmaker in general, War of the Roses is a amazing movie. It's fantastic. Death to Smoochie. For those who get it, it's great, but for those who don't, it's awful. Hoffa's a decent movie. Um, just in general, Danny DeVito's he's a secret MVP of film. Not to mention all the producing he's done. There's so many like things that I love that DeVito is one of the producers of. So there we see Luke get his robot hand. He's back in his karate gi, the way we know Luke. And there's that, like I say, the sort of Crab Nebula thing, and we see all the rebel ships. And this always annoyed me though, even as a kid. It's like Chewie and Lando take off, and Lando's just went and like raided Han's closet. Like he suddenly has the vest and everything on. Like, give me a break, man. You tried to steal Princess Leia. You tried to rat me out and have me killed. I almost kind of did get killed. I'm frozen. Now you're gonna raid my wardrobe? You're a bad friend, Billy D. There, that's a pretty cool shot where we see them on the ship as it pulls away. It's like, kind of like a weird overlay, but it's neat to see that them looking out into the ship, the space. And there it is, directed Irvin Kershner. I like that Star Wars is so big and flamboyant and crazy and pushing all these boundaries, but then like the text for the credits and all the title cards and stuff was all just basic. It's like very simple. Um, Let's get caught up with this and get out of here. Let's make Sean Penn a Sith. Definitely. Sean Penn could also be a Jedi. He goes both ways. Yes, I've seen Battle Beyond the Stars. Oh, wow, we are behind. R2D2 adult film star? For sure. Bob Knight and Dick Enberg were very kind. From what I know about Dick Enberg, he is Bob Knight. I've always heard to be a jerk, but I don't know. Bob Knight would be a good Sith. You're right. Jack likes grandma more than me. Oh, Jack. Being a director, you made to embarrass people, or they will come after you. Um, yeah, I suppose you do, really, like Carpenter and stuff does. I love C-3PO. You do. It's such a nagging character. Badges, please. Action comedy. Third movie will be you and the children team up as buddy cops to save Larry from someone. Yeah, I'm down for that. I'm down with any movie for Larry. Well, I always remember Danny DeVito as the Penguin. Yeah, I mean, there's another one. I mean, I obviously I know him from Taxi and all that other stuff, but just in general, you can't go wrong with Danny DeVito. He's awesome. So let's see here, and the guy I was thinking everything about was Mark Hamill. Oh, okay, Mark Harmon. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I know what you're talking about the Summer School Mark Harmon, and he also did. He played Ted Bundy, a really good version of him. Speaking of weird movie trivia, this has been me rambling about movies once again. One of my favorite of all times, what I feel is a perfect film, The Empire Strikes Back, directed by Irvin Kershner, written by Lawrence Kasdan, who also directed Body Heat, as well as produced by George Lucas. And it's perfect. I love it. I could put it on right now and watch it again and enjoy every frame of it. It's a wonderful movie. I'll never see it too many times. It's perfecto. Soundtrack, visuals, even the acting. A lot of the acting suspect, but they get the best performance possible. And that has been episode 5, Empire Strikes Back. Be sure to join us tomorrow for episode 6, the last of the original trilogy we will be doing for now. I hope to see you all here again. I hope to have lots of interesting, spirited discussions about the pros and cons of Ewoks, as well as the pros and cons of attacking a rebel moon, following the lead of a lobster man. I have a lot of things to think about Return of the Jedi. Um, but that being said, I also have a lot of things to think about before then, and I should probably go to sleep. So I appreciate you all so much for coming. May the force be with you, and I wish all of you green grass and high tides forever. Adios, my friends. Adios, amigo. You will be.